In today's video, 3 really awesome advanced neo-soul guitar chords. This one goes into a lot of detail, so make sure you grab a pen and paper for this one. How's it going? Dave here. My channel's all about helping you create awesome neo-soul and R&B sounds on your guitar. If that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you're notified every single time I release a new video. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over 3 advanced neo-soul guitar chords. Now I'm going to show you how to play these chords, and I'm going to show you different scenarios where you might want to use them. So let's jump straight into it with the first chord, and the first chord is the major 7 sharp 11 chord. So let's take a look at the intervallic structure. We've got a root, a third, a fifth, a 7th, and a sharp 11th. So it's a major 7 chord, and we're chucking a sharp 11 on top there. So let's take a look at how to play it with the root note on the low E string and with the root note on the A string as well. So here is the first shape. We're going to play the root note on the 5th fret of the low E string, and that's with our middle finger. Then we're going to skip the A string, play the 6th fret of the D string with our ring finger. Little finger goes on the 6th fret of the G string, and index finger goes on the 4th fret of the B string. Very mysterious sort of sound, okay? Now, what we could also do is bar that index finger, play the 4th fret of the high E string as well, and that adds an extra major 7 to the chord. So the first use of the major 7 sharp 11 chord is as chord 4 in your key. So if we took the key of G, for example, 4th chord in the key of G is C, so we could play a C major 7 sharp 11 chord. Now that sharp 11 is the same thing as a sharp 4th, so it gives the music a little bit of a Lydian vibe there. So let's take a listen to a chord progression where I'm using the major 7 sharp 11 chord as the 4 chord. Now, if you're feeling really adventurous, you can use the major 7 sharp 11 chord as the 1 chord. Now you have to be really careful with this as it's not diatonic. If you're playing in the key of C, for example, C major 7 sharp 11 is not actually in the key, but still, if you resolve on it, it can still sound pretty cool as long as you do it carefully. So let's take a listen to a chord progression where I'm resolving on a major 7 sharp 11 chord as the 1 chord in the key. Now another really cool use of the major 7 sharp 11 chord is by playing it on the flat 7 degree of your scale just before you hit the dominant chord. So let me explain that. If we're in the key of C, we're going to play a major 7 sharp 11 on the flat 7 degree. So all you're going to do is drop down 2 frets. That's B flat, okay? So we're going to play B flat major 7 sharp 11, okay? Okay, and then you play that just before you hit your 5 chord in your key, which in this case would be G7 in the key of C, and then you can resolve back on C again. Okay. Okay, so take a listen to a little example where I did that. Now a really cool thing you can do with the major 7 sharp 11 is you can reharmonize melodies and get a really awesome sound. So what I've done is I've written a melody. It sounds very basic. And what you can do is you can choose any note in the melody, but I chose this D note here. So this note. And what you do is you play a major 7 sharp 11 chord over that note. Now, which major 7 sharp 11 chord are you supposed to use? Well, you use the one that makes the note in the melody the sharp 11. The major 7 sharp 11 chord that has D as the sharp 11 would be A flat, okay? Hear the sharp 11 there? That's D, okay? So that's exactly what I've done in this example that you're just about to hear. Now that sounds really cool. Something you've got to be aware of is that obviously we're using a chord completely out of the key here. So when you're playing over a major 7 sharp 11 chord, you're gonna have to play the Lydian scale. So you play the Lydian scale of whatever the root note of the chord is. So in this case, the A flat Lydian scale would be the scale that we'd use, okay? Luckily, the melody sounded quite good already and I didn't have to change anything about the melody. Now, I previously said in the video that the major 7 sharp 11 chord works as chord 4 in a key. So if we were to do this reharmonization, where we play this A flat major 7 sharp 11, we can actually use this as a chord that triggers a modulation or a key change. Let's take a look at how we do that. So we're obviously playing in the key of C to start off with. Then we're moving to A flat major 7 sharp 11, which is now going to be the 4 chord of our new key. So A flat is the 4 chord in the key of E flat. So we've now changed the key to E flat. So we can play chord 4, which is A flat, chord 5, which is B flat, and then finish on E flat. And we're playing a 4-5-1 in the key of E flat there. So we've started in C and then we've changed key to E flat. And take a listen to where I do that. I've altered the melody just a little bit so it fits the key, the new key that we're in. But it sounds really, really cool. So take a listen. So that is the first chord. That is the major 7 sharp 11 chord. Now we've got 2 more chords to go. What is the next chord? The next chord is the 6-9 sharp 11 chord. Another chord with a sharp 11. So let's take a quick look at the intervallic structure of this chord. We are playing a root, a third, a fifth, a sixth, a ninth, and a sharp 11th. So let's have a look at how to play the chord with both the root note on the low E string and the root note on the A string. Now the shape of the root note on the low E string is a little bit weird. 5 on the low E string with our middle finger. Then we're going to bar the next 4 strings, so the A, D, G, and B strings. Okay, it's a little bit tricky, but you'll get used to it with time. And then you're going to place your middle finger, or your ring finger, I mean, on the 5th fret of the high E string. So 5, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5. There you go. I'm really struggling to play that particular shape because it's very tricky to play. So what you might want to do is just take the root out and play something like this. Okay, so that's how you play it with the root note on the 6th string. But the shape with the root note on the 5th string is a little bit easier to play. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to play 5, 4, 4, 5, 4. So we're playing middle finger on the 5th fret of the A string, index finger on the 4th fret of the D and G strings, and then ring finger on the 5th fret of the B string, and index finger barring the 4th fret again, playing the high E string. A very nice sounding chord. Now again, this has that sharp 11, which means it works as the 4 chord in our key. So let's take a listen to a chord progression where I'm using the 6-9 sharp 11 chord as the 4 chord in the key. Now for the next use of the 6-9 sharp 11 chord, we're going to have to analyze the notes in the chord. So if we take the C 6-9 sharp 11 chord, we've got the notes C, E, G, A, D, and F sharp. Now there's another chord that has those exact same notes, and that is the D11 chord. Now the D11 consists of the same notes, just in a different order. So we're playing a D, F sharp, A, C, E, G. And this is used as the 5 chord in our key. So what we could do is we could play the 6-9 sharp 11 chord as the 5 chord in our key, but we have to play it a tone lower. So for example, the C 6-9 sharp 11 has the same notes as the D11. So you'd play it with the root note being C on the 4th degree of your key. So if we're playing in the key of G, our 4 chord would be C 6-9 sharp 11, but it's functioning like a D11 chord as chord 5, okay? And then you can resolve back to your root note from there, okay? So take a listen to a chord progression where I've done exactly that. I'm playing G major 7, C major 7, then I'm playing C 6-9 sharp 11, but it's functioning like a D11. and then it resolves very nicely back on the G major 7. So take a listen. So now that we can use it as a 5 chord, we can also use it with a secondary dominant sort of function, okay? So all we've got to do is work out what the secondary dominant is. Now, if you don't know what secondary dominants are, check out my video on secondary dominants and familiarize yourself and then come back to this. So what we're doing is finding the secondary dominant, then playing the 6/9 sharp 11 chord a tone below that. So for example, if the next chord in our chord progression was A, the secondary dominant for that would be E7, which is a 5th higher. But then if we want to play a 6/9 sharp 11 chord, we go down a tone and we'd be playing a D 6/9 sharp 11 chord. And that functions just like the E11, resolving very nicely back on the A major. Okay, so let's take a listen to a chord progression where I use the 6/9 sharp 11 chord as a secondary dominant sort of function. Now, one more use for the 6/9 sharp 11 chord that I don't really know why it works, but it works, is to play the 6/9 sharp 11 chord a fret higher than a dominant chord just before you play the dominant chord. Okay, so for example, if we're heading to D7, D dominant 7, we play a 6/9 sharp 11 chord, a semitone higher, so E flat, 6/9 sharp 11, and then D7. It just sounds really cool. And then from there you can head from 5 to 1, G, okay? Now a really cool thing you can do is head to a dominant 7 sus4 chord, and that sounds even better, so. And then to your standard dominant 7 chord, and then G in this case. So let's take a listen to a chord progression where I've done exactly that. So that was the 6/9 sharp 11 chord, a very versatile chord as well. Now let's take a look at our final chord. This chord is the dominant 7 flat 9 chord. Now this is one of my favorite chords. It's a definite go-to chord that I use a lot, and it's very, very useful. So let's jump into the usage of the dominant 7 flat 9. So a dominant 7 flat 9 chord is an altered dominant chord. And altered dominant chords are basically dominant 7 chords that have an altered 9th or an altered 5th. So either the 5th is raised or flattened, or the 9th is raised or flattened. In this case, we're playing a dominant 7th chord with a flat 9. So the intervals would be root, 3rd, 5th, flat 7th, flat 9. So let's take a look at how to play a couple of shapes of a dominant 7 flat 9. Okay, so with the root on the low E string, we can play this shape. So we're playing 5 on the low E string, we're playing 5 on the D string, 6 on the G string, 5 on the B string, and 6 on the high E string. That's a really nice voicing for it. You've got to be careful, just try and mute that A string if possible. It's quite tricky too. So sometimes I prefer to use this voicing here where we're playing 5 on the low E string, skipping the A string, playing 5 on the D string, 3 on the G string, and 5 on the B string. Sometimes I prefer that voicing. It's just a little bit easier to play and works just as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the root note on the 5th string now. So what you'd want to play is 5 on the A, 4 on the D, 5 on the G, and 4 on the B. And that's a really awesome voicing for a dominant 7 flat 9. So what you can do is you can play the dominant 7 flat 9 chord as the 5 chord in your key. So for example, in the 2-5-1 chord progression in A, for example. So you could play B minor 7, which is the 2 chord. Then the 5 chord is E7, but we can play an E7 flat 9 here. And then we can play A major 7. So let's take a listen to that in context. Alright, so now let's analyze the notes in the chord a little bit more. If we took an E7 flat 9 chord, for example, we'd have the notes E, G sharp, B, D, and F. Now, if we took away the E and just have G sharp, B, D, and F, we have a G sharp diminished 7th chord. Now, the cool thing about diminished 7th chords is that they're a symmetrical chord, which means no matter which way you invert it, you still get a diminished 7th chord. So for example, if we took this G sharp, B, D, and F and made B the root note now, so we're playing B, D, F, G sharp, we get a B diminished 7th chord, which is also the same as the G sharp diminished 7th chord, just in a different inversion. Same thing if we take D and make that the root note, we've got D, F, G sharp, and B, and that's a D diminished 7th chord, or a G sharp diminished chord, or a B diminished 7th chord, depending on if you're inverting it or not. And finally as well, we could take the F, make that the lowest note, F, G sharp, B, D, we get an F diminished 7th chord, but it also could be just a different inversion of a D diminished, a B diminished, or a G sharp diminished 7th chord. Why is this important? Well, this means if we want to play an E7 chord, for example, we could play a low E in the bass, for example, and then we could play a G sharp diminished 7th over that E, and we get an E7 flat 9. It's just a really interesting sound. And we can just move this around in minor thirds. So we can bring this down a minor third, down a minor third, and it sounds really, really cool. And this is to be used as your 5 chord. You could use it as a secondary dominant as well, and you could just omit the root note E and use a diminished 7th chord, 1 fret below whatever chord is coming next in your chord progression. So for example, if I was going to C, I could play a B diminished 7th chord just before the C, and it sounds really, really awesome. Okay, so let's just take a look at a couple of examples. I'm playing a 2-5-1 again, D minor 7, E 7 flat 9, and then A major 7. Now over this E 7 flat 9, I'm playing different diminished chords. So I'm playing, first of all, a G sharp diminished chord over an E in the bass. Take a listen to that. And now I'm using a B diminished chord, or B diminished 7th chord I should be saying, over this E bass in the 2-5-1. So take a listen to that as well. Now I'm using a D diminished 7th chord with the E in the bass as chord 5 in our 2-5-1. So take a listen to that. Finally, I'm playing an F diminished 7th chord, and I'm using that over this E bass, which is the 5 chord in our 2-5-1. So take a listen to that as well. Okay, so that's the dominant 7 flat 9 chord, and that covers all the chords for today. So we've got the major 7 sharp 11 chord. There's tons and tons of use out of that. I think that's probably the most versatile chord in this video. Then you've got the 6-9 sharp 11, which also has a load of uses, and of course this dominant 7 flat 9 chord that we've just covered as well, which is really, really awesome. You can do a lot of things with it, and as I said, you can muck around with the diminished chords and just really go to town with your chord progressions. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Do you want to see any more videos on any specific subjects? Do you want to see more awesome chord videos like this where I go into detail on different chords? Let me know. I am listening to everyone's comments and taking them on board. And make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. That'd be greatly appreciated. Also, check out my Patreon page. There you get some awesome benefits, some exclusive lessons, so definitely worth checking out. And I'm offering the first 2 chapters of my book, Chord Charisma, for free. So if you want to learn how to write awesome chord progressions and add extensions like 9ths, 11ths, and 13ths to them, then those first 2 chapters of my book are going to show you exactly how to do that. So definitely head to the description, check that out. It's free, you've got nothing to lose there, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two. Now, that's it for today. So if you want to keep learning, make sure you check out this video here, and there's tons more for you to learn. Have a good day.